There's a couple of really important issues in storage. The first is the exponential growth of capacity, because now storage is so cheap. Actually, storage really costs you the cost of the electricity to keep the disk spinning. You've got very high capacity disks, so you can use storage for anything you like. But where storage has actually improved dramatically in terms of spatial efficiency, in terms of its capacity, where it hasn't kept up is in terms of its performance. Average access times, that's the time that the head on the disk takes to move to the next track, haven't really moved very much in the last 2 decades. And latency, which is the time between when you request a block from the disk and when you get it back, hasn't changed from 8 or 9 milliseconds, again for the last 2 decades. So we've seen massive capacity improvements, but very few performance improvements. NAND flash memory, which is what are on the cameras that are recording me today, are on your iPhone and your iPad, has begun to be used in the data center. And we're seeing all flash arrays that offer millions of IOPS, output per second, compared to a $4 million storage array, which might give you 50,000 IOPS. You can get a much cheaper storage array, maybe not with the same capacity, that will give you 1 million IOPS. So there's a few orders of magnitude difference there. And then the second thing is that you're going to move from about 10 milliseconds of latency to less than 1 millisecond of latency. Now, I think everybody probably understands what IOPS mean for business applications, but it's about the more people that you've got sharing your business application, the more IOPS you need, because the more pressure you're putting on the back-end storage. But what about latency? Latency is the thing that really destroys application performance, because if you're having to wait for the disk to come back to you, your application performance really goes down the pan. And when you put a flash array into a critical business application, the performance just is fundamentally different. Now, for highly virtualized workloads like VDI, virtual desktop, and highly virtualized servers, virtualization, the hypervisor, actually acts a bit like a food mixer, where you've got all this serial I/O coming into the storage array, and the hypervisor actually chops it up into small pieces, so it looks like totally random I/O. Disk arrays hate that because they have to move the heads. Flash arrays don't have heads, so they don't move, and you just don't notice the fact that you've got this blender approach from hypervisor. So flash arrays are ideal for highly virtualized work environments. Now, you asked me for two things. The first thing was flash, and the second thing that's really important, I think, is deduplication and data reduction. So if we have a look at many workloads, what we find is that much of the data that we're actually using is duplicate. And we've seen major benefits in the backup world with folks like Data Domain acquired by EMC a few years back, using deduplication to do backups. But only recently have we seen deduplication used for primary storage, because the latency penalty, the latency tax of doing deduplication, actually made it virtually impossible to do with magnetic storage arrays. You just destroyed the performance of your storage controller. But with flash, it's actually feasible to use a little bit of latency in the flash array and give deduplication. And for some workloads, you can get 20 or even 50 to 1 deduplication ratios, which actually makes flash cheaper than magnetic.